Hey all, welcome to this week's episode of the Shut Up, Get Up podcast. I'm your host, Mike Muldoon. As always, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for being here. As always, the Shut Up, Get Up podcast is about shutting down any of those outside or internal voices that are holding you back from, basically living your best life or, living the life you want to be living. And of course, the get up part is just you got to get into action, because if you change nothing, nothing changes. Change something changes. All right, so today we're going to talk about this need for some, this incessant need to be liked. People pleasing, if you will. People pleasers engage in this type of behavior where they want everybody to like them because they want to avoid conflict or criticism. And they believe that if they just do what others want, they'll be less likely to face negative feedback or pushback from them. But see, the thing is, the challenge with this type of behavior is that if you're always so worried about pleasing others, then you risk, the consequences of never being your true self. And realistically, this is just a recipe for numerous negative consequences in your life. Now, this episode might seem slightly redundant to an earlier episode last year that I did when I talked about how you should never care what people think about you. Because when you concern yourself too much about what the opinions of others are, and you're always concerned about what they think about you, you're never really being the real you. And I've even argued that by being that way, you're selfish. But this is a little bit different, okay? Because people pleasers, they do this for a variety of different reasons. And most importantly, it's a desire to be liked, to be accepted, and to be valued by others. Whereas when I talk about not caring about what other people think about you, I'm talking about more about like, hey, I really wanted to do the school play, but I play football and I'm scared about what they're going to say about me, so I'm not going to do it, so you stay in your lane, right? I talked about this in another episode, moving from being a lamb to a lion, the willingness to go about it alone. Well, people pleasers, it's not so much about this willingness to go about it alone. It's just about this need to kind of, the only way they can feel like they can belong is to basically, people please. And, people pleasers, what they do is they agree with everyone, right? They agree with everyone. No matter what they say, oh, it's a great idea. Even if they hate it, it's a great idea. They often apologize for things when it's not even their fault, though. If they're British, like my wife, this isn't people pleasing. The Brits just tend to apologize for everything. It just tends to be their behavior. It's kind, but it's not so much people pleasing for them. But that's it. They're always apologizing for their behavior, even though what they did wasn't really something that needed to be apologized. They take too much ownership for how other people feel. Again, they're too scared to hurt people's feelings. If you're a people pleaser, you don't say no. I've had to talk to my wife about this a little bit. She's not a people pleaser, but she definitely had a hard time saying no. And she's got a lot going on. And she's gotten so much better at it now. But for a while, she was always like, yep. And then I'd say, honey, you got to stop. You're doing too much. Because what happened was, even though she was doing things to help other people out, because she wanted to help out, and she's a reliable person, she's a responsible person, and she likes to be there for people, it was wearing her out. It becomes a negative consequence to her. The other thing about people pleasers, and you know this if you're one, you want to avoid conflict, again, because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But here's the crazy part. You'll never express your feelings because, again, the discomfort that can be created from that situation, you don't want to rock the boat because you want to keep everybody happy. Now, it's a common human tendency to want to please others. But for people pleasers, they often find themselves going out of their way to accommodate the needs and the preferences of everybody around them, even if it goes against their own ideas, their own beliefs, or even things they want to do, or things they don't want to do. So, how does one become a people pleaser? How did you get to people pleaser state? Well, I got to be honest with you. A lot of the challenges that human beings face, that you might be facing, a lot of it can simply be rooted, a lot of it, a good portion of it, really just self-esteem. One of the challenges is simply you're just struggling with low self-esteem, because with low self-esteem comes that fear of rejection. And again, if you're a people pleaser and you think, well, I could just focus my needs on others, and they're gonna, a people pleaser, if I give them my attention, if I agree with them, well, I'm going to be less likely to be rejected or criticized by them. So again, it's that low self-esteem, that unwillingness to deal with the discomfort, to kind of stand your ground. Now, look, I'm not saying it's not nice to have people like you. I mean, yeah, there's definitely some certain benefits when people like you. It might even enrich your life in certain areas. But again, it can lead to these negative consequences, because if you're constantly trying to please others, it can be exhausting. It eventually can lead to resentment, make you feel like you're not living that authentic life you want to live, because you know it, right? You know what's going on inside. You know what you're doing. And inside it's eating at you, right? And of course, because it is people pleasing, this fear of rejection, this disappointing of others, it's a difficulty of making independent decisions, right? Because you don't want to make a decision, might not rock that boat. And then the other challenge arises, and one of the probably the biggest negative consequences you can have is you can't set healthy boundaries. And you need to be able to set boundaries with people, because it basically creates a guideline on how you want to be treated. It lets other people know what is okay and what is acceptable, and what is not okay and what is not acceptable. So now you're probably thinking, oh gosh, I recognize this behavior in myself. Or maybe you recognize it in somebody else. So what do I do about it? Right? Because that's why we're here. We have a challenge. We see something, or we see it in somebody, or, we see it in ourselves, but maybe we don't want to acknowledge it. But now you're acknowledging. So what do we do? Well, that's the first part of everything, especially for you. If you're somebody who's listening to this right now going, oh gosh, that's me. Oh, that's me. That was me last night. That was me last week. That was me the other day. It's recognizing. Again, everything will always go back to recognize. You have to just acknowledge that you have this tendency to put other people's needs before your own. That you recognize that it's so much more important to you that people are happy with you, that you're not causing conflict, with them by keeping them happy. But simultaneously, you probably realize the stress and the anxiety and the negative emotions that you're keeping down inside for doing this. So it's really important at first to recognize that you are this person, you are pleasing. And then you got to make a decision to stop. And the first way to stop, and this will be hard. This is going to be a very hard thing for people who've spent most of their time being a people pleaser, especially if you're in a circle of people who are so used to you just always, they say, what do you think? And you say, yes. How do you like this? I love it. When they can just rely on you to feed them exactly what they're expecting to hear back from you, which is something that's probably going to agree with them and not challenge them. And this, so for people please right now, this is going to be very hard, especially if you're in a group. But as I've often said in the past, if people are real, and you really want to be around these people and they really love you and you care for you, they're going to be okay with your growth. So the second thing you really have to do is, after you recognize this, you got to start setting those boundaries again. You got to set the boundaries. You got to stop saying no to everything. You got to start doing things that feed your soul, that feed your needs, that fill your values. You got to start just prioritizing what you want to do, what your thoughts are, to get back to your independent thinking. If you don't agree with something, you say it. If they don't like the fact that you don't agree with it and they get angry about it, and of course you were just being nice because they were saying we like blue, and you're like, well, I think the red's going to work better, and now all of a sudden they're mad at you. Well, that's on them. That's on them. But you need to start getting back to your authentic self. You got to break away from this. And it's going to be tough because, again, if you've been doing this a long time, if you've become old reliable, where people just, know that they can count on you to agree with them, and it's going to be a problem. There might be some conflict there. Again, this might not just be with your personal relationships. This could be with your with your family. This could be with your work relationships, anywhere. But you got to start setting those boundaries again. And by doing that, you got to start taking care of yourself emotionally and mentally. Again, working on yourself. You are good enough. You probably just never realized that you are good enough. But if you don't feel that way, then there are a lot of things that you can do to work on yourself, to improve yourself, to better yourself. But you've got to start taking care of you. You become number one. You become number one. Because as they often say, if you can't love yourself, who can you love? I think that goes for relationships as well. If you're not comfortable with you, how can you bring a comfortableness to the relationship? The fourth one here, you got to just stop worrying about people's approval. I mean, you got to go back, listen to my earlier podcast where I talk about stop worrying or stop caring about what people think. You got to stop worrying about their approval. You don't need other people's approval to feel good about yourself. The happiness that you're searching, that you might be getting from other people when they like you, is already inside you. You're just using it as an opportunity to unlock that happiness. Happiness does not come out of the air and just strike you into your body. It doesn't just suddenly go, oh, I'm going to land right here. It's there. It's inside you. The problem is you're just relying too much on other people to unlock that feeling of happiness when realistically it's right inside you. So you got to stop worrying about people's approval. You might even realize that people start looking at you differently, going, finally you have stepped up. Finally, we're seeing your true self. Finally, that person that I knew you always could be there. Not everybody's going to be angry about it. Some people might celebrate it. But you got to start being your authentic self. Start doing and getting back to a place of feeling where you feel good. Where you're really looking at you. You say, you do, you want, you chase, you go after whatever that you want because it makes you feel good. Everything starting from a place of feeling good is a good place to be. So focus on your own values, focus on your own goals, and trust that others, they're going to appreciate who you are. And if they don't, and if they have a problem with it, well, guess what? You're eventually going to attract people into your life who do appreciate you for who you are. Okay? So look, if you're out there and this resonates with you, or maybe it resonates with somebody you know somebody does it, well, definitely send them over to listen to this podcast. But, this is not going to be an easy habit to break. This is like most habits, you just can't, click them right off. It's going to take some work. But the first thing is acknowledgement. The first thing is become self-aware. Recognize that you're doing it. Decide to make a stop. Decide to start setting up those boundaries. Take care of you and stop worrying about the approval of others, okay? Because if you continue to do this, it's just going to be more and more detrimental to your health. And if you want to figure out ways to change or improve your life, well, I've got about 30-something other episodes on different facets of your life that you might have challenges with that you might want to work on. So go back and listen to them. And if you're a first-time person here, hopefully you will go back and do that, listen to them. But other than that, people, you are probably as great as you are right now. You just don't recognize it, all right? And let's not worry about people pleasing other people. Let's just worry about ourselves. And when we take care of ourselves, when we feel good about ourselves, we're good to everyone else. We're better husbands, we're better wives, we're better friends, we're better partners, we're better coworkers, because when we can be comfortable in our authentic self, then that's when we shine. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me this week on this episode of the Shut Up, Get Up podcast. As always, check me out on my Instagram, Mike Muldoon LC. Guys, I'm trying. I know I say it every week. I'm trying to keep up on social media. Not very good at it. But I'm trying to be there for y'all. You can always go to my Facebook page, Mike Muldoon LC as well. You can always go to my website, Mike Muldoon LC. Again, the LC stands for lifecoach.com. You can always book an appointment on there with me. Just reach out to me. If you have a question, concern about anything, feel free to just email me. I'm here to help out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you once again for being with me. I hope you guys have a great, great weekend. And I got nothing but love for you.
up. Get up.